Hello, it's Maureen. I know you haven't seen me in a video in a little while, and this week our topic is shoes. Now these happen to be a pair of what would be considered Dutch style wooden clogs. These date back actually to the 13th century, where clogs weren't necessarily made of entirely of a piece of wood, but were rather wooden soles that helped protect factory and folks who sort of labored in some sort of job like that would protect their feet. And the soles were wooden, but not necessarily the tops. But eventually they've become the Dutch shoe that, and from Holland and such, that we all know, love, and recognize as something that's more of a souvenir thing. You can still purchase shoes that are your size to be worn, but just like any other wooden project, they can be subject to breakage because wood has a grain, things can break. But this also lets me premise a little bit about our topic today. While I can wear these as long as I have some sort of support on the inside, or wearing a shoe inside my clog, like a ballet flat or something much smaller, it's something that I can do for myself and have a really nifty little clog that I'm wearing underneath maybe a Dutch outfit for a Renaissance event. However, that may not work for everybody. So I premised the video this week with a note of caution, I guess you could say. If you have particular issues with your feet, if you have corns or bunions, get blisters very easily, have particular issues with your feet in other ways, where you end up having to have special shoes. Historical shoes may not be something you would have a lot of ease getting into. If you have something medically going on with your feet, before you would change your shoes that you have, I would suggest consulting your doctor, your podiatrist, whomever that you see for any of your conditions with your feet. Make sure to confer with them first as to whether or not this is something that you can do safely, that does not cause yourself any discomfort, harm, or possible damage in the future. So if you have foot issues, take that into consideration before purchasing historical shoes. Because none of us want to be able to, buy a pair of shoes, love them to pieces, but then not be able to wear them. It's a little sad. It happens, and it's unfortunate. But I have my clogs down there. I'm not going to try on all the pairs of shoes. That would take forever. But I'm going to show you what I have in my inventory. I have 18th century and some 16th century styled shoes that I wanted to show you from different companies. I have quite a few from one company, but there are other historical shoemakers out in the internet. Especially, I've seen a few on Etsy that create some beautiful stuff. There's a little bit on eBay, but not so much. So keep in mind that if there's a particular era that you're shopping for, that research it, figure out what style of shoes were worn, and see if there is someone who is willing to either make you a custom pair of shoes, or if someone is selling the appropriate style for your era in a modern sizing. Now, shoes could be made out of a couple different materials, and not just leather like we traditionally think of. These do have leather soles to them. And these are actually from Samson Historical, and they are leather-topped 18th century style latchet shoes. So there would be a buckle that you would normally be wearing over the top of this. I got these woolen ones because I thought they would look great. It's a color that I wear a lot with Tudor clothing. Tends to have black, white, and red quite a lot. So buckled shoes doesn't really look completely wrong. Although buckled shoes didn't really come into play more till the 18th century, but I figured this was a good sidestep for me to get used to wearing historical shoes while I was transitioning from wearing modern shoes to wearing historical. So I was sort of going back in era. There's also a few events that I'd like to eventually attend that are 18th century, so the shoes aren't going to go to waste. So these happen to be a size 9, and because they are fabric topped, there is a little bit more flexibility and leeway on these than I would say a typical pair of leather shoes are. Now there is a nice little heel to these. You can see that from the side. So there's a nice little heel to it, but it's all leather on the bottom. So this probably needs to be scratched up a little bit. I really haven't gotten to wear these yet, but I wanted to pick these up for indoor events. I'm thinking about Scotch guarding them quite thoroughly. I think it would be a good idea since they are fabric shoes in case I should run into an event that is wet and I do want to wear them outside at some point. I don't expect these to hold up as well as, let's say, a leather pair of shoes. However, they're really nice. I really like them. And I think they're going to be a beautiful addition to the shoes that I have for historical clothing and events. So I'm going to stay with the same company and go on to the next pair that I have gotten to wear a little bit. Mainly in the house when attending events online. Now this is the leather version from Samson Historical. This is their green pair of Dido Bell heels. Specifically, these are supposed to be more 1760 to 1790. I like the green because it matches my apprentice belt that I have in the SCA. And I wear such voluminous skirts that, to be honest, you're only seeing the end of my shoes most of the time. The fact I wanted to upgrade my shoe game during the pandemic, and since I wasn't attending regular events, this actually gave me the opportunity to do that. So these happen to be, you've got traditional leather on the inside. These are also size 9. And you get to see that I did wear them outside a little bit. So there's just a little bit of wear there on the heel. And I wore these on pavement, though. Like, I wasn't... and in the house, we have, like, cement in the basement. So that's where these were mainly worn. I'm not expecting to go through my shoes. The heel on these is set a little bit further back than the other one. So they do feel a little different walking in, but I didn't have any problems with them when I wore them for the event that I had. I was doing spinning, so I was actually taking my shoes off to spin, so that was kind of nice, giving myself a way of breaking these in without my feet really hurting too much. And they're getting there, slowly but surely. But this heel being a little further back does feel a little different to walk on, but it's still possible. But this one was also from Samson Historical. They are Colonial Outfitters from Indiana, in Pennsylvania, not Indiana. They're from the state of Indiana in the United States. Let me just move this out of the way here. So there's that. All right, staying with Samson Historical. Let me just get these next pair out. These are another Colonial pair of shoes. These happen to be their Charlottes, which, if you notice, the heel is sort of in the same position as the Dido Bells. And we have this Mornay burgundy oxblood color. Yet again, all leather bottom. They've been worn at least once. Very comfortable, very nice to wear. I have sliding buckles on these, so I don't necessarily have to pierce the leather on these. I notice with sliding buckles, I do have to readjust the buckles every so often because as you move, they can become undone a little bit. So that is a difference between regular buckles that pierce the latchets as compared to a sliding buckle like these. So that is the Charlottes, and I have to say I've gotten to break them in a little bit. They're very, very comfortable as well. Yet again, because I'm wearing Tudor clothing, you're really only seeing like maybe that much of the shoe. Nobody really knows, unless they see me pick up my skirts, that I am wearing a pair of buckled shoes. But as I mentioned, I wanted to really bring up my shoe game a little bit, specifically for Tudor. So for the green and red pair, I specifically wear for SCA events. And I have 2 new pairs that I'm actually going to be breaking in here very shortly. Now this is from a different company. This is from American Duchess. And this happens to be their Mary in the oxblood color, which is a latchet-style shoe, which has more of a wider opening here. And then laces, which could be replaced with a bow or other ties to dress them up if you wanted to on a more court style. I do middle class, so I'm probably just going to keep these ties for the most part. They do sell other ones for other ribbons at theamericanduchess.com, at their website. It's a all leather heel as well, but if you notice, it's more of a modern style heel with the leather as compared to the sort of, the other ones were worn a little bit, but this leather is more like a modern shoe leather, I would say, than the other ones that I happen to have from Samson Historical. But these are quite nice. Of course, I love red, so the oxblood color is perfect. Recently got them in, and I will eventually have to break them in at some point. So normally they suggest breaking in a pair of shoes by wearing them around the house. So I do work from home, so that is always an option, is to wear them while I am sitting here working. All right, and I wanted to show you this. Now, the color, these are listed as ivory. They're also the Mary style. They have this in Marlowe, which is a little bit of that would be the men's size for this. I would definitely say that these shoes are what I would call a little bit more unisex, because people were wearing very similar style shoes, whether they were ladies or gentlemen at this time. And sometimes they would decorate their shoes with different ribbons or have slashing in the leather. I really, I haven't gotten to wear these, but I do look forward to doing that. The ivory I thought was going to be really light, but to be honest, I think this is definitely more of a buff, like a buff color. And I was actually much happier when I got this color in the mail than having a really when I think ivory, I'm thinking bridal ivory, which is very light. When I got these in the mail and saw that it was a little bit more of a buff colored leather, I was much happier, because this color, I think, is much more representative of what was worn when you do look at pictures of women's shoes from the 16th century. I don't think they were wearing white. They were getting as light as they could, but I'm thinking it was more of a color like this and not pure white, unless they were bleaching it, like their linens. I believe they could get their linens pure white and get those bleached. But for leather, I think with brain tanned leather at that point in time, they could only achieve so much of a lightness on some of their leather work at that point in time. But I think this color is extremely accurate. I was thrilled when I opened the box and saw the color. I'm like, okay, that is a color I can wear. Can it still show dirt? Yes. Can the red color, the oxblood color, still show dirt? Sure. So I do plan on, with all of my shoes, to be honest, I really only go to medieval events that are indoors. I don't, if I'm wearing a special pair of shoes like this, I am going to be bringing a change of clothing with me and a pair of modern shoes to change at the event. So most of the time, my shoes should last me a good long while, for the sake that I'm going to be wearing them indoors and not as much outside. I mean, can I? Sure. But I know that the dirt and the dampness are going to affect the quality of my shoes eventually. So that's something I have to take into consideration. In the Society for Creative Anachronism, there are a lot of camping events. And to be honest with you, that's not really my thing. I guess you could say I tend to be more of an indoor girl, more than anything else. So I'm a little sensitive to temperature change. And because of wearing the layers that I wear, yes, they breathe. But because of my temperature sensitivity, I don't really like to risk getting or becoming overheated or too cold. I have something called Raynaud's syndrome. So for me, it's a health-related something where my hands and feet, if I get especially too cold, it ends up being a problem where getting warmed back up takes a lot longer than it should be and can become a little bit painful if circulation doesn't want to come back to certain fingers and toes. It is very unpleasant. It's not fatal, it's just something that's very uncomfortable. So because I know that about myself, I take those considerations when I go to an event. So I make sure I have water, I make sure that I have shade, and that I have snacks. You have to take care of yourself, when, especially if it's an all-day event. I was not good at that in my 20s when I just started the SCA. I didn't plan. And you learn over time, I guess you could say. So now, if I do 18th century related items, the one event that I'm aware of is more outdoors. So I'm not exactly sure how I feel about the shoes with the outdoors. The event I'm thinking of is normally in the first weekend of October, and that can either be rainy, it can be... The weather is very variable because of it being an outdoor related festival. But I have the shoes if I ever wanted to do other events that maybe weren't outdoors. And these are more American Duchess shoes. What I like to do, and I think is a good idea, when it comes to this particular vendor, they offer pre-order, and I highly recommend that. I wear size 9. It's a very common size, and it's probably one of the first that they end up running out of. So if you're a common size and you're looking at getting into historical shoes, if the vendor is doing pre-orders, I highly recommend it, just because then you know you're allotted a pair. This happens to be the American Duchess Dunmores. And this is one of their recent ones where they did a blue. It is lovely. And don't know if you can see it in the light, but the leather has this gorgeous texture. It's actually really nice. Pet the leather, pet the shoe. It's very, very nice. And then there is this twill tape that they have going around the edge. And the lining as well. It ends up having that nice white twill tape throughout parts of it, or twill like cotton fabric on the inside. So it's a nice way of finishing it off. Of course, the traditional sole. An American Duchess shaped on their heels is a lot different than the other heels we saw on the Samson historical shoes. These are a little bit more narrow in that case. You know, they are leather shoes. Could they put up with being worn for a bit? Yeah, they definitely could. But I try, if I am doing something historical, as far as wearing my clothes and wearing my shoes, I wear them, but I try not to abuse them. And I wouldn't say that people from the time abused their things. Not everybody did. They wore them until they fell apart because things were more expensive. Me having, let's see, 7 pairs of shoes is probably considered, you know, a bit vain for back then, because people just wouldn't have had the money to be able to have, you know, have something like that. They would have just wore out the pair that they had. When things were getting a little worn out, then they would go ahead and order the next pair. You know, they wouldn't want to be without a pair of shoes. Let's put it that way. They would wear the old pairs until they got the new pair, and then get rid of the old pair. This was one other item that I also ordered from American Duchess that I thought was fun, and that is their mule. Now, that if you notice with the mule shoe here, it's not as skinny as the Dunmore. It's actually distributed a little bit wider, but you still have that nice shape. I love their heel shapes. They're really elegant. We do have a leather, but this is a smooth leather on this one. So that is nice and shiny and smooth like my other leather shoes. We have the twill tape edging. The lining on this is more of a brown leather though. And it's very nice. It's very almost velvety. It's not velvet, but it has that nice texture to the leather. So I haven't gotten to wear these per se, but I thought they were fun. You can't really go wrong. And that green, oh, that's a pretty color. You can't go wrong with that. So, yet again, I did a pre-order with these because of being a really common size. They do still sell them off of pre-order, but you do get a little bit of a discount if you do pre-order. So, I don't know about you. I'll save a little money when I can, here and there. So, if I was really at more of an indoor event, I'd probably wear my mules. I don't see why I would wear them outside. All right, let me do that. Let me find my last pair here. All right, the last pair are ones that I was really excited about. I don't quite match my shirt, but we're darn close. These are another pair of Dunmores. So yet again, we have a more narrow heel, but it still has a decent width at the bottom. And I noticed that these heels do, because I've gotten to try these on and make sure that they fit. I've noticed that American Duchess heels do seem to be a bit better centered underneath your heel. And I feel a little safer with balance on these than I do my other Samson historicals. That's why I'm just very cautious about where I wear them, what I am doing. Because, I mean, they also have the Samson historical are more like a historical shoe. You actually have the little nails in there. I don't want to be scratching floors and things like that. So it's something that I like to keep in mind. But, you know, yet again, a more modern sole, but it's a still leather sole. Theirs, of course, is a bit thinner, being a modern sole as compared to the other shoes. Those were thicker, but still very nice. We have the textured leather again on the Dunmores, so it has that nice textury feel. I love a textured leather. That's nice stuff. But they still have the Dunmores in various different colors, and there's colors that I didn't order. There's a lavender. There is the green also comes in the Dunmore style. So they also have the oxblood red. So if you go to AmericanDuchess.com, this video is not sponsored, by the way. I just happen to like their products. You'll be able to see the full range of shoes that they have, the sizes that are available, the prices that you're looking at. But what I like about their products is you're getting a good leather shoe that has a little bit of modern techniques to it to give you a good quality shoe that's going to last you a long time. They also have fantastic information on how to care for your leather shoes and what you need to do to take care of your shoes, that they're going to last you even longer, as long as they possibly can. Granted, that's based on whatever it is that you're doing, but, you know, take that into consideration. Yeah. Now, American Duchess shoes can't be returned if they show any signs of wear. So, not that I have any plans on returning any of my shoes. I don't. But what I like about they make good quality products. Let's put it that way. I'm happy with what I have. I look forward to wearing them and breaking them in and seeing what they can do. I ended up getting the Samson Historicals because I wanted to see what else was out there. And I'm glad that I have these two, because you can really kind of compare and see what you have. Are both going to work? Yeah, definitely. I'm very happy with my Samson Historicals too, and I've gotten to wear them and break them in and enjoy them, and I do. I look forward to seeing and comparing the American Duchess and seeing how that goes. Let's plop those over. Besides these styles of shoes, so you have the latchet-style, Tudor-style shoe, which was the Marys that I showed you from American Duchess, and then you have the 18th century latchet-style shoe, like the Samson Historicals and the other American Duchesses that I have. Court shoes in the 16th century somewhat were like ballet slippers to a point. Heels didn't really come in until the very end of the Elizabethan era, so I like a little bit of a heel, so that's why I was happy with buying the Marys. I'm thinking, okay, and it's a nice stacked wider heel. It isn't as narrow as the Dunmores. So I know that I'm really going to be able to enjoy wearing the Mary style shoes in the oxblood and the ivory. I know I'm going to get a lot of wear out of those. I can see them being a favorite, potentially. And they're appropriate to the time frame. But I like also just having the wool style 18th century shoe, because shoes weren't necessarily all made of leather at that point in time. You had some, quite a majority, that ended up being leather, but you could have fabric topped shoes. And past Tudor time frames, you did see fabric topped shoes become quite popular into the 18th and even 19th century. As far as shoes go, I know that there are other folks here on YouTube that are really fantastic at that. I would suggest going over to Nicole's channel. She goes into more of the ins and outs of historical shoemaking. But yet again, as I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you do have any kind of medical situations with your feet, I would definitely confer with your medical professional as to find if you're into historical shoes and wanted to purchase a pair. I wouldn't want you to waste your money and then not have a pair of shoes to wear. So do confer with your medical professional to get some advice on fits and styles and things of this nature as to what will work for you. If you liked this video and you found it useful, please consider liking my channel and subscribing. I upload every other Friday. And I guess that's more or less it for this particular week. We didn't see any feline friends this week, I guess, but normally they like to jump on the table here, but oh well. Well, I certainly thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video all the way to the end. If you have, you're great people for doing so. I will talk to you in my next video. Bye-bye.